Big thank you, as always, first and foremost, to our corporate partners that you can see there on the screen. We have Solera Autotex, we have BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Innovation Group, Mercer, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners Aztec, the Green Part Specialists in Darsa and Presco UK, and our associate partners Gemini ARC, Trend Tracker, and Thatcham Research. And just to make everybody aware, if you haven't already seen and or heard, the tail end of this month, Wednesday the 29th of June, we've got a big showcase event, combination of ARC360 and ILC Motor Games at the CBS Arena in Coventry, headline sponsored by Enterprise. Get along there, plenty of different things going on throughout the day, keynote sessions, showcases, next generation meet and greet, lots of exhibition space and stands, and of course plenty of networking. So we hope to see many of you there. So today, business strategies and best practices. Fantastic lineup of speakers today. So we've got Gary Bloom, a Senior Operations Manager at Davies Group. We have Ruth Mooring-Beale, National Sales Director at Morelli. And we have Neil Marcus, Marketing Director at Celsius Vehicle Accident Centres Limited. So disclaimer, as always, the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee or other group or individual. Please respect any and all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. Welcome along, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. So great to see everyone. We'll have a little round robin, see how the world is treating everybody first and foremost. Neil, I'll come across to you in the first instance. How is the world treating you and Celsius?
Well, it's treating us very well, thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, treating us very well. You know, we've had a couple of fairly lean years, as has the rest of the trade, throughout the lockdown, the pandemic. You know, we've had repairers supporting us and our clients very well throughout the pandemic, and of course I'd like to take the opportunity to thank them very much for that. Yeah, I think, you know, we're sort of coming out of it, and then of course we get hit by another round of geopolitical or economic or social factors which you can't always control, and supply chain issues as well. But really, you know, we're very pleased the way things are going. We've got a cracking network of repairers, and we're just pushing on. You know, got to adapt, really, and that's what the session is all about, Mark. You know, having to adapt your strategy according to what you're going to be facing, what your objectives are, and your environment, which is for non-controllable. So that's what we're here for, to pull the whole thing together. But really, you know, I mean, it's you know, we've seen tough times before, but we've just got to battle through them, and never lose sight of your core proposition and your brand presence, and just push on and do what you think is best for yourself and your clients.
Fabulous, good to hear, and we will come back to you very shortly to fill us in on more details on that those various areas you've touched upon there, Neil. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us. Last time we had you on, you were mid-COVID, in fact. So we've come a long way since then. And how is the world treating yourself?
Yeah, pretty well myself. And the business is doing pretty well despite all the challenges that we've been faced with. But yeah, it's not too bad. I think in general we're lucky we're still here and going as we are, and you know, the market's still pretty buoyant for us. So yeah, we're doing what we always do, riding the waves and hoping we'll get to the shoreline at some point in the future, but the shoreline keeps moving. They keep moving the goalposts, don't they? But yeah, it's good.
Fabulous, good to hear. And again, more detail coming up on that very shortly. And Gary, welcome along. Great to have you join us. How was the world of the Davies Group?
Yeah, busy. So yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, a busy world, and probably echoing the comments that there were a refer from that sort of side of it. It's been a difficult couple of years, especially in the motor industry from our side as TPA, and also, you know, repair networks, etc., and supply chain. So excited to talk about that a bit today and see where we're sort of moving, I guess, in the future. But yeah, difficult couple of years, obviously impact of COVID and the various other elements we've had on the back of that sort of side of it. But I think in a strong position to move forward, really, with some of the stuff that we've had to do and are now looking to do. So, yeah, excited to talk about it today.
Brilliant. Okay, so we'll kind of try and keep to theme as much as we can, and that's a very broad theme, I hasten to add, with business strategies and best practices. But let's take it sort of step by step and see where it takes us. So, we have learnt, and you've all kind of already alluded to that, the last couple of years, we've learnt an awful lot about ourselves, about business, adaptability, agility, kind of, keywords that keep coming back, and rightfully so. So how has this past couple of years influenced business strategies, best practices? How far ahead are we looking these days? Is it the same as pre-pandemic now? Or again, are we just faced with too much happening right now? Neil, I'll come to you first, if I may.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yeah, well, I think it has influenced our view of business strategy, definitely, and best practice. It's taught us that basically nothing stays the same, and you've got to adapt to survive. What's the expression? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, sometimes we've just got to get back to basics, apply some basic business principles, some theory behind what we do. I think it's too easy not to apply, academic principles behind what we do, but we're doing it all the time without us even realizing it. As far as strategy is concerned, we just believe that, we need to write down how you want to get to achieve your objectives with a costed budget. Where do we want to go? What are our objectives generally, whether it's ourselves at Celsius or us representing our repair network? What's our revenue targets, market share, profit, ROI? But basically, how are we going to get there? And what we're going to do with our business mix, to achieve our objectives. Yes, it's about adaptability. It's about being able to control the things that we can control, Mark. Things like our product and service offering that we offer, our operations team, pricing policies, marketing communications, people, and point of delivery. But the problem is that what we do have is that we've got a very odd set of circumstances of external factors at the moment. We have some very challenging economic and social, political, geopolitical environments. And also, it's affecting our repairers as well, because we are our repairers, and what affects them affects us. We depend on our repairers to deliver our service, and at the moment we've got some, general problems, as a result of the pandemic. The pandemic hit volumes. There's no denying that. We've got this hybrid working we're having to adapt to. But thankfully, a lot of our businesses work in vehicles, and so you can't really work at home with a delivery vehicle, for example, for a delivery van. Finding skilled labour after furlough and Brexit, war in Ukraine, affecting auto parts, supply chains, production, cost of living, logistics, you name it. It's hit us like a perfect storm, Mark. HGV driver shortages, increasing energy costs, inflation and rising fuel, but we've been there before, but it is really about being agile, and adapting it, and really never losing sight of what we're here for, what our core competence is. And I would argue that the smaller the business, the easier it is to adapt, the easier it is to move with the times. But there is no shame in changing direction. I have to say that sometimes we have to change direction. It's always a bit of a government thing. I've got to draw criticising any government for U-turns, but sometimes when you're in government or you're in management, you've got to change things for the good of the whole. And there's no shame in that. But we're facing tough times. There's no doubt with the increased energy costs, parts, labour. What we've tried to do, if possible, is to try and adapt with that. Try and if we can get any like energy surcharges for repairers, bringing labour rates up to scratch to face the challenges of costs. But it's we're very. With every negative, there's always a positive, Mark, is what I'm saying, really. These are things that are happening all the time. Things are changing the way we communicate with each other through digital platforms and cloud-based systems. So I think, it's still an exciting industry, and we're adapting with it. But but never lose sight of the fact things are changing. And if you have to change direction, and we will.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll come across to you, Ruth, if I may. I mean, you probably echo an awful lot of the sentiment there from Neil in terms of, the impacts on the sector at the moment. Is that kind of one of the lessons to take from the past couple of years? And I hate going, back on where we've been, but, are we more agile as businesses now? And we need that. We need to be that.
I think, I do think we're more agile. I think we have to be more agile because we've had a set of circumstances thrown at us that we've never, ever had or envisaged. And we got our staff together for the first conference that we had at the end of last year in 2 years. And one of the key areas that our managers highlighted is that we'd given them during the whole period regular updates and got them together on calls like this and updated them on what we were doing, and they all said how serene and how organized and how calm we all looked dealing with everything, and we were basically telling them that we had no clue. We were paddling under the surface, and if we made it look easy and calm and kept everyone calm, that was the aim of it, but we had no idea what to do. And I think we were in most businesses were in the same situation. You're making it up as you go along. It certainly changed some of the ways that we go to market and the practices. I mean, we use the courier systems a lot more than we did for our deliveries. It means we can go further. I think customers are more accepting of the fact that they can't have everything, that day. The twice-day delivery, that kind of thing is gone because they accept that we've got to do things a bit differently. But it does give us more flexibility on that side of it, and has allowed us to change the way we do things at the depots. So there's a lot of good stuff there. I think our reps are now journey planning differently because they're using medium like this to communicate with customers. There'll never be a substitute for face-to-face. Ever, not in my business anyway. That's what we build our reputation and our business on, is face to face. But I don't think that we need to be busy fools anymore, and I think we can do an awful lot of it. We do a lot of training by video. We do a lot of problem solving by video calls, etc. Our managers talk to customers and solve paint issues, that kind of thing, across medium like this. So it has changed. And let's face it, I think you said something similar when we were off air, Neil. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And we have to keep changing. And I think the industry has got to look at itself and change. A lot of the problems that the repairers seem to be getting at the moment are because I think business practice is lagging behind from claims work providers, insurers, etc. The process of allowing or getting the body shop to carry the cost of the whole repair from the minute it hits their premises through to the end is crippling a lot of cash flow in a lot of businesses. Is there a way that the industry could change that and prepay for some of the repair, work on a rolling basis with cash up front so that the repairers aren't carrying the whole cost for, in many cases, blue chip companies. And we are going to lose a lot of those sorts of businesses over the coming months if we don't change that kind of practice. And as a supplier to the industry, that's my biggest concern, is that we're putting the cash flow on businesses that are already struggling to get back to normal after the last couple of years. There's plenty of volume around. That's not the issue anymore. The issue is servicing that volume and being able to actually provide that. We've got the courtesy car issue where, I've been saying for a while, if insurers decided that they're not going to write courtesy cars into policies over the next year, we'd get rid of that problem, because it's a rolling 12-month problem for anyone on a car insurance. You don't have to sell a policy with a courtesy car, so you don't have to give a courtesy car away. And those sorts of things will massively impact how a repairer can go about doing their work. And as claims providers, there aren't many repairers who are within contract obligations for their current contracts with work providers, because they can't be. So now's the time to change that, and I think it would impact the whole industry if that was changed.
Really interesting thoughts. And Gary, I can see you kind of nodding your head on several occasions there. So, your take, what to sort of echo what Neil said, what Ruth has said, align with that. What are we kind of doing differently today, especially from, the Davies Group perspective, and how is it impacting operations?
Yeah, massively. And again, absolutely echo all the points there that maybe it's a case from our side of very much that having to adapt very quickly from the impact of COVID. I mean, I think having an operation of 200 people that would historically come into an office and work every day, and within the space of 2 days having to mobilise that to a complete home working model was challenging. And we were forced to make some of these changes, but I think some of these changes were for the good of the industry, the good of the individual as well. And I think that's a big thing for me that's changed in relation to it is people. And how you deal with people and how you interact with the staff and how you deal with that sort of side of it from an operations, and it has changed completely as well. People's drivers and needs and wants, people who've never had the opportunity to work from home before, even had that option, has now opened the door to them and has opened up a pool of people from, whereas you were locally perhaps employing people within a 20-30 mile radius, we can now employ people who work in Europe or potentially work, across other areas of the world. It means from our side we can open up another door to something that will give us some operational agility, which is what we are doing and what we like to do. But if we were to say as a company and as an industry, would we have done that had it not been for the impact of COVID? I think we know the answer to that is we wouldn't. Or it may well have taken us another 5, 10, 15 years to have got to that stage. So there's absolutely been a push to do that. I think the big thing from our side about the Neil's and Ruth's points about being agile and adaptability is it's made us look at technology. It's made us absolutely look at what technology we have available that can do duties that we no longer could do during COVID due to the restrictions of COVID. And actually off the back of that, how do we use that within the industry to absolutely help us reduce costs, but also provide a better service to our clients? And I think that it's a good point, and Ruth's point about we're not alone on this. Everyone is suffering and everyone is going through the same challenge. I think from our side, it's touch on it probably a little bit more when we talk about some other areas, but communication has just become the most important thing from a people we're working with and with your suppliers and with your supply chain and even competitors. It's something where you perhaps are opening conversations and having conversations with people that you wouldn't have done 5 or 10 years ago, because everyone is in the same boat and everyone's going through their challenges. And it will make the industry look differently. Ruth's point about courtesy cards is an ideal point, and we have that on a daily basis that people are being sold policies to guarantee them a courtesy card. No one can guarantee a courtesy card.
That's it, exactly.
If you sell a policy, how can you sell a policy that guarantees when the industry can't? And there may be people out there saying, "Well, I'll service that for you and I'll supply the car." They're not there. It's not there to do that. So that is making tier one insurers, those type of people, sit down and actually say to them, we're having to have that conversation with them to say, well, we can't guarantee you that. And we don't have anybody else in the industry who can guarantee that. So actually, we do need to look at it, which is in some ways, something we wouldn't have probably done even 3 years ago, but now we have to, because that is the way of the world. And in some ways, that's challenging, but it's also refreshing. It's refreshing the fact that you can have those conversations with people and try and work together to ultimately, bring a better service for everybody and a realistic service. And I think that's the thing we've had to say now. Some of that stuff is perhaps not obtainable, but there's other options and there's other ways you can look at stuff. So yeah, it's been a fun few years. Got a few more grey hairs, definitely. But it's I think again, like the guys in echoing the point we said there about everyone will be better for it, and there is that bit about everyone's adapted, everyone's evolved, and hopefully come out the other side of it a little bit stronger.
Yeah, great stuff. And I think one of the really interesting sort of elements to this is, we had the past 2 years what we had. We sort of came out of that, and we started to think, right, what does the new normal future look like? And then, of course, we've had, as Neil described it, this perfect storm of a multitude of influences now way beyond the realms of our industry alone, kind of converge upon us and converge upon the world. And it's interesting to see, you know, then that knock-on effect is right. You know, how do we sort of, you know, batten down the hatches or do what we need to do on an individual basis to continue to take us forward? So, Neil, I'll come back to you in terms of, so we've talked about the need to adapt, the various kind of influences taking place. What are there any specifics? You know, can you cite anything that whether it be, you know, business strategy, whether it be best practices, how we are operating differently, and how is it providing benefits for, you know, not just yourselves but for all parties?
I think we are, you know, I think we are operating differently, and I think, you know, certainly, you know, what we're doing, in fact, is really grasping the digital age more than anything, really. You know, use of cloud-based systems, for example. You know, we have a central repair management portal. You know, we have cross-stakeholder communications now. And sort of building our software over the past few years has enabled us really to basically face the need really for more communication. And that, I think that's what we're finding more than ever these days. You know, our repairers, you know, they're invested in new equipment, training. You know, they're facing the challenges of EV and other new fuel technologies, whether it's, you know, hydrogen or biomethane in the HGV sector, for example. I think we are working more, and that's what these difficult, you know, environment brings. I think we're working more as a cohesive unit with a common service level, as opposed to being just them and us. You know, we are very much on the same page. We're all in this together. And certainly, as a network, we're in a very good position to get the views of about 200 body shops almost instantly and find out what is going on, what are their needs and requirements, and so that we're better able to present those to our own clients as well, you know, where they can hear it from one voice as opposed to many, many different voices. You know, I think some repairers, you know, I've even seen repairers ask themselves, what business are we in? Can we do something else with our skill sets? You know, we repair, we paint things. Is there anything else we can do, whether it's light industrial or leisure markets, or, you know, but, you know, I think you have to appreciate that repairers do need certainly a mix of business at different price points, certainly to reduce their exposure in volatile market conditions, or if they lose a major web provider. And I think sometimes, you know, if you get through the difficult times quite well and you come out the other end and you survived, I think you can look to the future with a bit more confidence. You know, if we can do it now, then we can do it going into the future. And let's face it, things aren't always going to be down. You know, the geopolitical environment always changes. Everything changes around us all the time. And I think the key thing is to be different is to adapt to the changes, you know, and certainly, you know, talk to people, you know, talk to your staff, involve the staff in strategy, where you want the business to go, what's the vision of the business. So everybody is on the same page, you know. So that's yeah. I think we're doing a lot of things differently, and least of which the digital revolution. I think that's bringing us forward. But you know, you can be as clever as we like, but if you can't get the auto parts, you can't get the paint, whatever. If there's a problem, we've got a problem, and that's just, and the buck stops here basically with us and our repairers. So yeah, so I think the most important thing is that we are in it together, Mark. You know, and you know, we can draw on the experiences of a very professional network of car, van, and HGV repairers to make sure we're doing the right thing for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know, it's an interesting kind of segmentation of the market. We've discussed for, you know, several times. We've touched upon that in terms of, you know, decision-making processes, i.e., you know, who am I partnering with? What is my business model now moving ahead? You know, is it different to what it was pre-pandemic? And I think there's been a lot of, you know, reflection within repairers looking at their business model and taking account of where they are. So, and obviously with yourselves positioned as you are, you know, catering for the fleet market, you know, an exciting time, and we'll come back to you in a second, but, you know, the different fuel types that are probably entering that market quicker than perhaps some others. So be interesting to hear your thoughts on that in a second. But Ruth, can I come across to you? And Neil kind of mentioned, you know, supply chains, obviously. You guys sit right at the very heart of all of this. And, you know, the challenges that we often hear around there? I mean, how are you guys kind of, navigating, managing that? What is new in your world in terms of, how do you ensure everyone's getting what they want when they want it, if indeed you can?
Well, I think it's very hand to mouth in a lot of cases at the moment. Ukraine has added another layer of mix onto the already difficult COVID, the shipping crisis caused by the Suez Canal last year, Brexit, etc. And I think Ukraine has just added another dimension onto that with raw materials in paint. A lot of that comes from Ukraine and Russia. So that's caused a lot of challenges. The fortunate thing from our perspective, as distributors, we're multi-branded. So if we can't get something, for a while in a particular range of products, so if Glassrit are out of stock or something, or 3M are out of stock or something, generally we've got an alternative to offer people. But that's getting harder and harder, and it presents lots of challenges for our staff to keep on top of that. We keep a large stock. We pride ourselves on keeping a lot of product on the shelf, but that's not enough at the moment, and it is very difficult. But people are generally very understanding. There's not many people stamping their feet because they can't get X, Y, or Z. But if you've got a car in the booth and you can't get the tinter, then it's no fun for anybody. Our stock management systems do allow us to put alternatives in there. Our staff are very good at keeping on top of that for customers, but it just adds another level of challenge on top of everything else. And I don't think it's quite as bad on our side as it is in the parts side for the body shops at the moment, and that's definitely a challenge. And I think the impact that's having is on cash flow in the body shops again. If you can't get a vehicle out the door that you've started or you've estimated, you think you've got everything, when you strip it down, there's a part missing. Car can sit there for 3 or 4 months at the moment, and the body shops are expected to finance that repair and keep that repair going. So they're paying for the parts. There's a massive parts crisis in terms of the credit issue for body shops, because their credit with the parts suppliers is being cut in many cases, and that's not just for independent body shops. The groups are saying the same. I was at a meeting a couple of months ago, and there were 2 or 3 large groups there who all said their credit rating had been cut, which puts a massive burden on their cash flow. And my personal view is they shouldn't be bankrolling blue chip organisations. Those organisations should be helping the repairers to free up the cash flow to do the repairs, because at the end of the day, the repairers don't make a huge amount of money on parts, but it's a large chunk of their cash flow tied up. So that impacts on us because they're not paying us as quickly. So those are all the different challenges that everybody's facing. And I believe there should be more conversations around the industry on this. We tried to get ABP to pick that up and try and have conversations with the insurers and the motor manufacturers and the key groups that were holding this up. And it, as far as I'm aware, it didn't go very far. But then we don't have a body that will go and try and challenge that kind of thing. And I think that's a shame for the industry. Everyone's operating in silos, trying to do their own thing. And there are some big companies, some major work providers that are helping the repairers and really sort of trying to do their bit. But I think it's an industry conversation that should be had. And, you're doing your bit to try and get that message out there. But when you look at the fact there's only sort of 30 people on the call, it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting thoughts, and you've probably just kick-started the conversation right here, right now. So let's see what comes out of this. And Gary, I mean, in terms of all those things that Ruth has touched upon there, and sort of bringing it across to the Davies Group, your network of repairers, how are you kind of managing in terms of that expectation, in terms of those repair pressures, what new best practices, what have you kind of implemented to ensure that everything goes as smoothly as it possibly can?
Yeah, I think from our side, it again, touching on the points, it's about communication. I think invariably is, assume a lot of times that people do know about these issues and about the stuff that's going on. I think when you're in the industry, you do. Invariably, when you're not, and you've got a car that's been damaged and you're waiting for it to be repaired and you've paid for it and you expect it to be done, and you've got a policy that covers you for sort of X, Y, and Z, you just expect that to be done. So I think the big bit is about, it's educating people and it's communicating and letting people know about what challenges we have, and our challenges are no different to the rest of it. It's such a competitive market in relation to the people who are trying to travel over these sort of things, but at the same point in time, there's only X amount of parts and there's only X amount of jobs that can go into a repair that they can do. So it is really challenging, and when you're trying to compete with people, when you're talking about different labour rates and different charges that people will have, you absolutely understand why repairers and garages, even within your own network, are having to pick and choose which jobs they do, because they know they're going to get like Ruth's point, they know they can get the parts for that and they can get that vehicle back out and they can get paid for it. And conversely, they're going to be potentially getting a better rate of repair on that than they are with somebody else. So it's such a competitive market that from that side of it, the big thing from us, and a huge thing, is about that communication. It's about communicating with everybody and being upfront and honest in relation to if there is a delay. We're aware of that delay and we look at alternatives. What are those alternatives to things? We have to go down the route of cash in lieu settlements and sort of go back to where we were 20 years ago. Again, it's that whole bit about with people. But again, educating customers about that is a huge piece through communication. And I think that's the very difficult thing, is about being able to speak to people and being able to educate. Like we said, forums like this, but we had to do similar sessions with our clients about talking to them about all of the challenges, and that becomes a sort of common theme now in all our client meetings about what are the challenges with the supply chain in motor across all of them. It's not just vehicle parts and repairs, it's a replacement vehicle market. We have a massive shortage of new vehicles out there, so anybody who's tried to buy a new car or had that knows the challenges are there, which then conversely has a knock-on effect today. People can't have a hire car when they need to have one, or people are having to turn around and say, I want a replacement vehicle. These are the norm that 2-3 years ago people just expected. Or you've got customers complaining because they've got to go and drive a 4-year-old hire car. I mean, that's this is the type of complaints that are seen, and then having to try to explain to people that, well, actually, there's a shortage of new vehicles here, so hire providers aren't able to provide cars, etc., etc. It's stuff that we assume people know, and everyone knows about the challenges in the world and that affect them. And I think that's sometimes a big thing. Everybody understands that, and we sort of live in our own little bubble sometimes, don't we, in our own little worlds of what's the pressure for us. And there's a big bit about communication. But I think, talking about it again, that's something that we've got much better as. And we have to keep evolving. Stuff like forums like this, we wouldn't have been doing this 2 or 3 years ago. Everyone would have been in a hall somewhere, and actually we can do this now. We can do it in 45 minutes, and it may be really useful it's something that actually we can pass on, that sort of side of it. So being able to do this with our clients, and I could probably bang out 10 client meetings in a day, whereas before it would have taken me a month to do those, of driving halfway up the country to go and see people. Like the ability is there to do it, I think. And I think the last couple of years have given us that, and we must use that. We must absolutely use that communication for clients and the market in general, so that everyone knows the challenges. And look, that's what I said, we're going to have to try and work through them, but let's try and do it together, and minimise those as best we can, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And is one of the kind of biggest challenges around this is the fact that we don't know a timeline, so to speak. I think initially when we were a lot of these challenges were thrust upon us, we thought, that's going to be within 6 months, we'll be back to some sort of normality. Whereas now it almost seems like it's kind of continuing. Is that something you think causes the headaches even more?
I think it doesn't help, because on some of these stuff, if we talk about part delays, etc., is that we don't have an estimated a date for that part to arrive, and trying to explain to someone why that is, and is that the challenges because the situation in Ukraine and getting parts across, or the issues with COVID with microchips from China, having to understand that are factors that we don't know. I mean, talking to somebody in the industry the other day, of someone saying the issues with the parts, we could be well into 2024 before things do start to calm down. But again, that's a guesstimate, for want of a better phrase, in relation to where we see that happening. So I think it is, because everyone wants certainty, don't they? That's what everyone wants. Everyone wants to know, okay, so I've had this done and I break my leg and I know that in 6 weeks I'm going to be better and I'm going to be walking. And when you're in that world where you can't do that for people, you know, my car's off the road, when am I going to get it back? And you're sort of saying to them, you know, I can't tell you, you know, it's then, here are the other options. This is what we could do for you. That's what we can do for you. And some of that stuff is out of our control, and some of that stuff's in our control. And I think it's the uncertainty. It affects everybody in every walk of life. There's an uncertainty. Is a horrible thing for everybody. And I think that to me, it's definitely a factor in relation to if you can give someone a definitive date of everything's going to go back to normal on the 1st of January 2023, we'd probably think, okay, I can deal with that for a few more months. But it's a fact of, honestly, I don't think we know when some of these challenges are going to go back to normal.
All right, let's change things a little bit. So EVs, we spoke upon that earlier, and that's, you know, kind of, if you like, one of the things at the moment, which is certainly gaining traction, seemingly so, and coming our way. And we kind of, you know, that's almost a guarantee. We know that bit is coming. Neil, from your point of view, are we ready for EVs in terms of, you know, it's been kind of a slow start, and that's due to the production volumes, probably. That's probably, in a way, been a bit of a saving grace, perhaps. But does it change anything in terms of what you do? Does it change everything in terms of the industry?
It's just had another set of parts. It's hard to get hold of, really, I suppose. not to be too flippant about it, but yeah, I think you know, before all this happened with the supply chain, certainly our repair network was well on track in terms of adapting to EV, in terms of training, part supply, you know, every charging points, everything you've got to do, methods, work methods, repair methods. Yeah, I think as a network, yes, we are. I think we've got other, as we've said today, you know, almost like bigger issues at the moment, immediate issues, of which the internal combustion engine is the main one. It's not EV, you know. So it's just added another set of problems, I guess, to the supply chain and the repair network. I have to admit that I'm not sure how, in the short to medium term, EVs, for example, will be great for the environment, because it's got to work with renewables. But that brings us on to the wider issue of net zero targets, battery disposals, etc. You know, but certainly in the medium to long term, we will see EVs with renewables as well as other fuel sources like hydrogen and biomethane as the way forward, and the latter two probably kicking in predominantly in over 3 tons in our HGV network, in our specialist HGV network. They're definitely here to stay. You know, the majority of our repairs are pretty much up to speed in terms of equipment, as I said, and training. But because of vehicle prices, it might slow down a bit. Certainly since the government has, with immediate effect, cancelled the plug-in grants for drivers, and the charging infrastructure, range anxieties, they'll still be dominating the conversation as far as EVs are concerned. There's no doubt about it. They're here to stay. We're on track with them. But you know, but certainly it's not going to dominate. EVs won't dominate the body shop floor in terms of the bit repair business mix in the short term. Medium to long term, yes, but not immediately. That's not to say the repairers aren't ready, or some repairers are even arranging different EV facilities, making a bit of a marketing communication of the whole process. But yeah, I think you know, we're ready. We're ready to go. So you know, that's where we are at the moment, Mark. You know, but there are other issues, and I think the net zero thing has been sort of put aside a little bit because of the current supply chain issues. You know, so it's all a question of what dominates the headlines at any particular time, Mark. You know, but we have to adapt to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ruth, I mean, from your kind of business perspective, does EVs have a big implication in terms of how you operate, how you work, or product you supply?
Not really. I think, we're moving some of our vehicles, our own vehicles, across to hybrid. I run a hybrid myself. The challenges that we've got is if we wanted to move our delivery vehicles, for example, across to electric, is that a lot of our staff live in places that aren't ideal to plug the vehicle in overnight. So if they've got a delivery van, how can they plug it in if they live on a third floor flat, for example, or in an area with terraced housing, etc. And it's not fair on them to have to absorb the cost of that either, particularly with the cost of fuel rising. So we've trialed those vehicles. We do have some of them working in some of our urban areas, but the challenge is that they've got to bring them back to the branch for charging, etc. The cost of putting the charge points in is still quite high. We would love to be more eco-friendly, and a lot of our managers have sort of challenged us with that. We are carbon neutral. We've achieved that recently. But I've got to say, I think a lot of it is virtue signalling at the moment. I don't think that we can really make a huge impact with the way things are at the moment. The infrastructure isn't there. We have several fully electric vehicles on the fleet. Our relationship with Peugeot, or Stellantis as it is, means that we get to try these vehicles out. And they are hugely frustrating for anyone that is doing more than probably 20 or 30 miles a day. So they're not very practical for our reps because they haven't got the range on them. Even the Teslas that we run have not got a huge range on them. I'm simply not organised or prepared to spend an hour in a service station waiting for my vehicle to charge up and build that into my journey planning. It's just, and I don't want my reps doing that. So I think there are a lot of challenges before EV becomes accepted. And I think the general rule, talking to the car manufacturers, is that hydrogen is the way to go anyway, and therefore we're sort of fiddling around the edges at the moment waiting for hydrogen to become a thing. So all this infrastructure and expense that's going into the electric vehicle thing, in some respects, is a red herring for what the future is going to bring. So whilst I respect what the government's trying to do, or world governments are trying to do in progress this, and we all support it, we can't not support it, I just think it's flawed technology at the moment, and they're trying to rush it out and force people down the route of doing, going down this route without the infrastructure in place. We've got the clean air zones coming into most of the big cities now. Birmingham launched theirs last year. Most of the vehicles that we run can go in, but anyone in our staff who's got a diesel Golf, for example, 58 plate, can't go into Birmingham without paying 12 quid. How's that going to work? You can't tell me that people who live in the centre of Birmingham have all got brand new cars that are all, under that emission. So I respect the intent, but I just don't think it's well thought out. So we're all trying to do our bit, but with technology with the infrastructure that isn't up to scratch. And the repairers, we supply all the product for EV repairs, the body hooks and the gloves and everything else. All the repairers have got it. They're all, obviously very keen to work on the electric vehicles. A lot of them are going for Tesla and that kind of approval. But even so, I think a lot of them are very nervous because it's an unknown technology and it's an unknown danger in the workshop. So there's a lot of nervousness around it. I think most people are supportive, but are a bit, don't really know how I'm going to get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you probably echo a lot of sentiment across the public, really, in terms of thoughts on EVs. And it's really interesting, bit by bit, watching, hearing, listening to people in terms of their, EV journey, if you like, or transition. It's just, somebody who sits here and drives a normal combustion engine, it's kind of, when do you take that leap of faith, if you like? And we all want to, but when does the decision made for you? And Gary, in terms of kind of just touching on it again from a Davies Group, a network management, a repair side point of view, in terms of the EVs, are we in good shape? Are we in good stead? Does it change, anything that you currently do?
Yeah, I think yes. Well, we have to be alive to it. I mean, we've got customers who are looking, and sort of large fleets who are looking to say, actually, by 2023, we're going to be 100% electric in relation to our fleets, and make some quite bold statements that we obviously have to try and support. I think one of the big challenges is the repair network, and understanding that we're in a world where inflation's hitting everybody quite hard, and there's a big push from the repairers to be able to support that in relation to the equipment they need to repair these electric cars. So the challenges we've got out there is are the repairers prepared to invest the money to repair the electric cars based upon the expense up front, to have the equipment they need to repair those vehicles, and then obviously, like you say, the unknown factor of actually how many jobs is that going to deliver me. Which I think is back on the point that Ruth made in relation to the infrastructure is the big challenge, I think, from that side of it. The fact that the best will in the world, if you don't know when you're going to have to charge it, or if you're going to be able to charge your car up and then to do that every sort of hour, 2 hours, is just not feasible for a lot of our commercial fleet clients that we deal with. So, but there are people who, from a sort of sustainability and environmental responsibility viewpoint, are making the push for it. So we have to be as ready as we can. And I think from our side, that is that bit about, we talked on supply chain earlier about widening that as much as we can. So it's moving away perhaps from the world of where we were of single suppliers and some person being able to provide that for us, to actually, if we've got clients that are going down an EV route and they're going to say we're going to do it, and we have, commitments are there from them, and they're standing by those commitments at the moment, as bold as they are. We've got to be able to service that from their side. So it is that bit about, okay, so how do we make our supply chain stronger, and able to deal with that demand, because the demand is going to be there, and we will have to widen that. We will have to look at other alternatives, because that is the only way at the moment you're going to do it, because there's probably not the size of the network you would want to cover some of this stuff in relation to the electric vehicles. But the push will come, and there will be, as I say, with mission statements and the views from a lot of companies about sustainability and the push for that. The rising fuel costs, people are going to look at other alternatives now as to, okay, well, perhaps I do need an electric car because I can't afford to fill it up with diesel, or all the other alternatives. There will naturally be a move from some people to do that. And we've just got to be as prepared as we can be. But it's going to be a challenge, because, like I say, it is especially around the repair side of it. It's a huge thing, and also, looking at the average cost of those repairs, it's something whereby the average cost of an electric vehicle repair is substantially higher than it would be with normal costs. So there's stuff there whereby insurers, MGAs, the people that we deal with, have to understand that as well, of actually, if we are going to start to underwrite a lot more electric, and we're going to understand that the average cost of that repair may go up as well, because the average cost of it is more expensive to repair it due to the complexities of the vehicle and the stuff that's there. So I think it's a little bit of an unknown factor in some ways, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out over the next couple of years, definitely.
Absolutely. Interesting, exciting, call it what you like. One of the two, I'm sure. So just very quickly, just to round up, and it's been a fantastic conversation. Really, really do appreciate it. Anyone listening in, drop any messages in the chat, or fire away any questions. We can pick those up afterwards, perhaps. But very quickly then, just to round things out. So we've talked about a lot of the challenges. We've talked about kind of all the headwinds coming, our way, global business way, whatever it might be. How do we do our bit? How do we do our bit for the industry as a whole? Neil, you're on the spot. You're first to go.
Good luck with that one.
Been set up. I think we are doing a lot for the industry as a whole, and I think as a trade, we've been doing a lot for the industry as a whole for a long, long time. If you took the environmental practices, for example, Mark, the industry, we've been playing our role since the early 90s, well before net zero became fashionable, quite frankly. We're marketing waterborne HS refinishing systems because of the Environmental Protection Act, for example. Our people got adapted according to the cost regulations, care of substances, hazardous to health. We use green recycled parts in our business where the fleet client wants recycled parts. We'll repair over replace to overcome issues, supply chain issues and parts, for example. We dispose of our parts and solvents in a responsible way according to regulations. We'll try and do temporary repairs if necessary to get fleet vehicles back on the road. We're always looking for new marketed opportunities really to help repair exposure, because we are representing the repairers. If we do see opportunities come along, we'd rather focus on the opportunities rather than sort of dwell on the threats, if you like, in the external environment. But I think as a trade, as a business, we've got so much going for us at the moment, and I think we're strong enough. Say as a network, for example, and as an industry, let's not just being flippant. I think as an industry generally, we have a very good dialogue. And I think this, I've been in the accident repair market most of my working life, but and I've only seen it get better in terms of the supply chain partners, the repairers that become more professional. They're used to talking to each other more, sharing best practices. Our heavy commercial vehicle group, for example, at Celsius, so before the pandemic, and we'll have to resurrect them, we meet quite regularly to find out what their concerns are, listen to their technology, what's happening further down the line, so that we can properly represent them to fleet clients, for example. So, we are doing our bit, I believe. We have been doing it for a long time. But it can only go so far. I don't think you can keep hitting suppliers for high discounts, for example, because service levels will start getting compromised. We basically we're all in this together. What I've heard today, a lot from Wolf and Gary is that we are in this together. We all want the same thing, and we're in the accident repair business. We want our repairers to be strong and survive well into the future. And as an industry and as a network, we want to get them through this difficult time at the moment. And I think because we have so many good people within the industry at all levels of the supply chain, I think we will get through it. And because I think we've been here before. So that's my personal view of things, really. And the bottom line will take care of itself, Mark.
Fabulous. That was the quick answer. Ruth, just again, parting thoughts in terms of how can we all do our bit really to help each other out?
I think, we've all got a responsibility to make sure that we're taking as much cost out of the repair as possible through the way that we work with body shops. My primary objective is to keep body shops profitable so that they're our customers for longer. So a lot of the things that we do with our quantum program, our cost reduction program, looking at cost per labour hour sold, all I think helps the body shop to retain their profitability and also to show the work providers that they are doing their bit to try and minimise the cost per job. We're looking at the moment launching a series of videos and tutorials to show people how to use products that don't use the same energy. You don't have to put stuff in a booth. So with UV curing for primer and products that aren't energy heavy in order to complete the repair in either the same time or less time. We promote the 3M spray gun very heavily because that's a very sort of cost-effective way of putting paint onto the vehicle. We're showing some really good transfer savings on that. So whilst we love people to spend a fortune on paint and materials, because that's what pays the bills for us, we like to try and reduce that for people and try and make that as cost effective as possible, and try and pass on the knowledge that we're acquiring on the technical side to help them. So we'll continue to do that.
Fabulous, fabulous stuff. And Gary, one final thought from yourself in terms of, doing our bit. Is it communication? You've referenced that quite a lot today. So,
so I think it is. It's continuing to challenge, isn't it? It's continuing to challenge the norm, whatever that norm is anymore. But it's a case of actually, what something where I said before, where we wouldn't have had a conversation about this 2 or 3 years ago, is now having that conversation.
Yeah.
About sort of the unwritten rules that perhaps you don't talk about. It's being open and transparent, and trying to work together as best you can, whilst also understanding, when we talk about sustainability and the environmental issues, and understanding that actually that can sometimes get us over a problem. Green parts is a brilliant idea from that sort of side of it. We have parts issues, so actually why are we not looking at using second-hand parts if it's nothing wrong with it, and from that sort of side of it. But there's an education piece there, and there's a bit there where we have to talk to people and we have to communicate with people. And on Ruth's bit, we have to talk to the repairers and keep absolutely. We have to keep that network as happy as it can be in relation to the amount of work that's coming through it, so that everyone's happy from that side of it. They've got jobs that are coming through that we then don't have clients moaning because they can't get their vehicles into repairers, etc. But having the more repairers on that, the easier that all becomes. But we all do have to work together for that. And that's an idea of actually, like you said, it can't just be one person profiteering out of all of it. It's got to be a case of everyone's winning out of it rather than just one particular party, because ultimately we all have to work together. And if it doesn't work together, then the person that was winning differently won't be winning for much longer, because it's a case of everyone needs to rely on everybody. And I think that is that case of, walls that previously you wouldn't have knocked down, we have to knock down, and people who wouldn't normally talk together have to talk together to try and find solutions to some of the problems we've got. And I think, as always, when there's a problem, it makes people work on a solution. And there's been lots of those over the last few years, and there will continue to be. But like you said, we like to think, definitely from a Davies perspective, our bit is about, we want to talk about problems, and invariably let's talk about them and let's find if we can find resolutions, because that is the whole bit, and it falls back to that bit about communication. It's a paramount to the business. People aren't talking across all the different areas: supply chain, clients, customers. All the different points need to be talking together to try and address the issues that are in the industry at the moment, because we're not going to do that unless we do. People working in silos isn't going to work.
Yeah,
brilliant. What a lovely way to round up, and great conversations there. I mean, fascinating listening in, hearing it all the challenges, yet the way the industry is pulling together, the innovation that's taking place, in terms of the way we think, the way we act, the products, whatever it might be, there is so much happening. It's and as much as it is tough times, I think it's truly exciting times as well, because from this will come some incredibly different and, as I say, innovative solutions that will no doubt change the industry. So conversation continues at the Motor Showcase event, Wednesday, the 29th of June. I know a lot of people will already have their tickets or be there, but if you're not, then please do come and join us there. Huge thank you, as always, to our corporate partners: Solera, Audatex, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Innovation Group, Mercer, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners Aztec, the Green Part Specialists in DARSA and Prasco UK. And of course, a huge thank you to Neil, Ruth, and Gary for joining us today. Really appreciate your time, guys. Fascinating conversation. Really, really enjoyed that. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for everyone else for joining us. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you all very soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.